My name is Elias Crow, and I'm 43 years old. I never thought I'd be the kind of man telling this story, the kind of story that makes your skin crawl, the kind of story that keeps you awake at night, listening for noises that shouldn't be there. But here I am. And if you're hearing this, maybe it's because deep down, you believe that sometimes the most terrifying things don't come from nightmares, they come from real life. I live in a quiet town, the kind of place where neighbors wave at each other, kids ride their bikes until sunset, and people leave their doors unlocked. Or at least, they used to. Before what happened to my daughter, Serena. Before the night everything changed. Serena is, or was, the light of my life. She's 21, studying literature at the university, and she has this laugh that could make even the darkest day feel bearable. She's sharp, independent, maybe a little stubborn, but she always tells me everything. At least, I thought she did. 2 weeks ago, she vanished. 14 days without a word. 14 days without a call, a text, a sign of life. People say time heals everything, but when it comes to not knowing where your child is, time is your worst enemy. Every minute stretches like an hour, every hour feels like a lifetime. At first, I thought maybe she was just stressed. Maybe she wanted space, maybe she stayed at a friend's place. But the more I waited, the more impossible that theory became. Serena never goes more than a day without checking in. I reported her missing. The police opened a file, asked questions, made notes, then told me the same thing they tell every desperate parent: we're doing everything we can. But their eyes gave them away, they thought she ran away. They thought I was overreacting. But I know my daughter. She didn't run. Something happened to her. The first real clue came on the 5th day. My phone buzzed at midnight. I was half asleep, barely able to see the screen. But the caller ID stopped my breath. It was Serena's number. I answered so fast I almost dropped the phone. Serena? Serena, is that you? Where are you? Silence. I pressed the phone harder to my ear, pacing the room, my heart thundering. Please, say something. Serena, talk to me. That's when I heard it, not her voice, but breathing. Heavy, ragged, like someone standing too close to the receiver. Then a faint whisper, so faint I could barely catch it. Dad. My knees almost gave out. Serena. Serena, are you okay? Tell me where you are. But the voice that came next, it wasn't hers. It was deeper, distorted, almost like two voices speaking over each other. Don't look for her. And then the line went dead. I didn't sleep after that. I sat in the dark, replaying the sound over and over in my head. It wasn't just the words that chilled me. It was the tone. Whoever, or whatever, spoke those words didn't sound human. The police dismissed it as a prank call. People do sick things when they hear about cases like this, the officer said. But I knew better. That was Serena's phone. Someone had it. On the 7th day, I decided I couldn't rely on anyone else. I started retracing her last steps. I spoke to her classmates, her professors, her friends. Everyone gave me the same rehearsed answer: she seemed fine. Normal. Happy. But one detail stuck. Her best friend, Lydia, hesitated when I asked when she last saw Serena. Her eyes darted away, her hands fidgeted. She muttered something about leaving early and changed the subject. That night, I drove by Lydia's street. Her house was dark, except for one upstairs window. I could see her pacing, holding her phone, crying. She knew something. But she wasn't going to tell me. So I widened my search. I checked Serena's favorite cafe, the bookstore she loved, the path by the river where she often walked at sunset. Nothing. Until the 10th night. It was raining hard, the kind of rain that drowns out every sound. I was driving aimlessly, headlights slicing through the downpour, when I saw it. A figure standing at the corner of an intersection. Soaked, motionless, head bowed. For a split second, I swore it was Serena. I slammed the brakes, splashing water everywhere, and jumped out of the car. Serena! I shouted, running toward the figure. But when I reached the corner, the street was empty. Just rain and shadows. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement. Across the street, in the window of an old house I didn't recognize, a curtain shifted. Someone was watching me. I froze, my clothes sticking to my skin, the rain beating down like needles. That house, it was the last place anyone should have been at that hour. Its windows were cracked, its paint peeling, its garden overrun with weeds. It looked abandoned. But I knew what I saw. Someone was there. For the next 4 days, I couldn't get that house out of my mind. I asked around, but no one seemed to know who owned it. Some said it had been empty for years. Others muttered about strange noises at night, figures in the windows, but no one wanted to admit they'd been close enough to check. On the 14th night, I made up my mind. I couldn't sit by any longer. Serena had been missing too long. The phone call, the shadows, the house, it all had to be connected. I waited until midnight. The streets were silent, the rain had stopped, and the air smelled of damp earth. I parked a block away and walked the rest of the distance, my flashlight trembling in my hand. The house loomed over me, dark and silent. I pushed the gate open, it screeched like a dying animal, and stepped onto the overgrown path. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back, but I couldn't. When I reached the front door, I pressed my ear against the wood. At first, nothing. Then, faintly, almost too faint to be real. I heard it. Breathing. I slowly turned the doorknob, my heart hammering, and pushed the door open just enough to see inside. The darkness swallowed everything, but then, in the corner of the room, something moved. And it wasn't Serena. If you listen to what I told you before, you'll know that I found myself standing in the doorway of that broken, rotting house, the one nobody in my town wanted to talk about. I should have turned back. I should have called the police again, or maybe just pretended I never saw that flicker of movement inside. But when your daughter's been missing for 2 weeks, fear takes a back seat to desperation. The air inside was different. Heavy. It smelled of mildew, rust, and something faintly metallic, like dried blood. My flashlight beam cut through layers of dust, revealing torn wallpaper and broken furniture. Each step I took made the floorboards groan, like the house itself didn't want me there. And then there was the sound. Breathing. Soft at first, then sharper, ragged, like someone struggling to hold it back. Serena? My voice cracked in the silence. No answer. I raised the flashlight, scanning the room. That's when I saw it, a shadow darting across the far wall. Too fast to follow, too human to dismiss. I ran forward, but by the time I reached the corner, the room was empty. Just a cracked mirror leaning against the wall. My own reflection stared back at me, pale and haunted. For a moment, I thought maybe I'd imagined it. Maybe my mind was starting to break under the weight of everything. But then I noticed something on the floor, footprints. Muddy, fresh. Leading deeper into the house. I followed them down a narrow hallway. My flashlight flickered as though the batteries were dying, though I'd replaced them only hours earlier. The further I went, the colder the air became. The footprints stopped outside a closed door. The wood was scarred, claw marks etched deep into its surface. My pulse hammered in my throat. I reached for the handle, but before I touched it, a noise froze me in place. Whispering. Dozens of voices, overlapping, indistinct. I pressed my ear to the door, straining to make out words. Some were sharp, almost angry. Others were soft, pleading. And then, cutting through them all, I heard one voice clearly. Dad. It was Serena. I threw the door open. The room was empty. Empty, except for a chair in the center. On the seat lay something that made my stomach twist, Serena's scarf. The one I'd given her last Christmas. Torn at the edges, stained dark. I snatched it up, clutching it to my chest. She had been here. Recently. But before relief could settle in, my flashlight beam caught something else. Against the wall, half hidden by shadows, was a camera tripod. No camera, just the stand. And behind it, a large sheet tacked to the wall like a backdrop. My mind reeled. Someone had been filming here. Filming what? I heard a creak behind me. I spun around, light cutting through dust. A figure was standing at the end of the hall. Tall. Thin. Still. Where is she? I shouted, my voice trembling with rage. The figure didn't move. I took a step forward. My foot hit something, a loose board, and the sound broke the silence. In that instant, the figure slipped back into the shadows, gone as if it had never been there. I chased after it, heart racing. Through the hall, into the kitchen, a kitchen covered in grime, plates still on the table, mold creeping over food that must have been left weeks ago. A back door slammed. I bolted outside into the overgrown yard. Moonlight spilled across the weeds, but the figure was nowhere to be seen. Instead, my eyes caught something across the fence, another house. Not abandoned. Lights glowed faintly from the upstairs window. Curtains shifted, and for the briefest second, I saw a face. Watching me. I scrambled over the fence, tearing my hand on the rusted wire. By the time I reached the neighbor's yard, the curtain had fallen back into place. But I knew what I saw. Someone was watching. I knocked on the door, my fist pounding. Hello. I know you're in there. Please, I just want my daughter back. No answer. I circled to the side of the house. The yard was littered with toys, a tricycle, a deflated ball, but no sign of children. The window I'd seen was too high to reach, but as I stood there, straining to hear any movement inside, a sound drifted down. A sob. Faint, muffled, but unmistakably human. I rushed back to the front, banging harder. Opened the door. I heard someone. Still nothing. I was about to break the window when a voice spoke from the shadows behind me. You shouldn't be here. I spun, flashlight trembling. A man stood under the street lamp, tall and gaunt, his eyes too dark to reflect the light. His clothes were neat, pressed, as though he'd stepped out of another time. Who are you? I demanded. The man tilted his head, smiling faintly. This isn't your house. And she isn't your daughter anymore. The words chilled me more than the rain ever could. I lunged forward, but in a blink, the man stepped back into the darkness. 1 second he was there, the next he was gone. No footsteps, no sound of retreat. Just gone. I staggered back to my car, Serena's scarf clutched in my fist. My hands shook so violently I could barely fit the key into the ignition. For hours I sat there, engine off, staring at the two houses, the abandoned one, and the neighbor's with its glowing window. Something tied them together. And, somewhere between them, was Serena. When the first light of dawn crept across the sky, I finally drove home, though my body resisted every turn of the wheel. I knew I'd return. I had no choice. That night, my phone buzzed again. A message this time. From Serena's number. One word. Help. And then the location pin appeared, right on top of the house next door. I keep repeating that to myself, like somehow reminding myself of who I am will stop me from losing my mind. Because the truth is, after 14 days without Serena, after the phone calls and the messages and the things I've seen in that cursed neighborhood, I'm not sure what's real anymore. The last time I spoke to you, I told you about the message, that single word, help, sent from my daughter's phone. And the pin that led me straight back to that place. I should have gone to the police, but they'd already written me off. I could hear it in their voices every time I called, "We're following leads, we'll keep you updated, we're doing everything we can." But they weren't. So it was up to me. That night, I returned. The abandoned house loomed like a carcass in the dark, and beside it, the neighbor's house with its faint glow from upstairs. The message had come from there. I was sure of it. I parked further away this time, killed the engine, and crept toward the fence. The world was dead quiet. No cars, no voices, just the crunch of my boots on gravel. My flashlight stayed off. The moon was bright enough to guide me. The window I'd seen before, the one where the curtain shifted, was still lit. I crouched in the weeds, heart hammering, staring up at it. I could almost imagine Serena's face pressed to the glass, waiting for me to save her. But then I saw something that froze me. The curtain moved again, slow and deliberate. A shadow passed by. And for a brief second, I caught sight of someone standing there. Not Serena. The shape was wrong. Too tall, too thin. I ducked lower, pressing myself into the dirt. My phone buzzed in my pocket, nearly making me cry out. Another message. From Serena's number. This one read. "Don't trust the neighbor." My throat tightened. She was alive. She was reaching out. But she was also warning me. I circled the house carefully, searching for a way in. The back door was locked, but the window near the ground had a crack running through the glass. With enough force, I could break it. I hesitated, imagining the noise echoing through the silent street. Then I heard it, a faint tapping from inside. 3 knocks. A pause. 3 more knocks. Like someone trying to signal. I didn't think. I slammed my elbow against the glass. It shattered quietly, the sound swallowed by the night. I reached in, twisted the lock, and slid the window open. Inside was a laundry room. The air smelled damp, like wet concrete and bleach. I climbed in, careful not to cut myself on the jagged glass, and landed softly on the floor. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I crept down the hallway, every sense straining. The walls here weren't decayed like the abandoned house. They were clean, maintained. But something felt wrong. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was suffocating, like the house itself was holding its breath. I reached the living room. The furniture was normal, a couch, a coffee table, family photos, on the wall. I stopped to look closer at them. The frames showed a man, a woman, and a little boy. Smiling. Happy. Ordinary. But as I leaned in, my stomach twisted. Their faces were scratched out. Every single one. I backed away, pulse racing. Someone had defaced them. Someone who lived here. From upstairs, a sound broke the silence. A thud. Then another. And then, unmistakably, a muffled cry. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my flashlight beam shaking. The cries grew clearer the higher I climbed. Pleading. Choked. Female. At the end of the hall, a door was padlocked shut. I pressed my ear against it, and my breath caught. It was Serena's voice. "Dad, please." I slammed my fist against the wood. "Serena. I'm here. Hold on, I'll get you out." I yanked at the lock, pulled at the hinges, but it wouldn't budge. My flashlight beam swept across the hall, searching for anything I could use. That's when I noticed the floor. Scratches. Long, deep grooves in the wood, all leading to the base of the locked door. As if someone had been dragged inside. My stomach turned cold. I raised the flashlight higher, and froze. On the wall beside the door, written in jagged letters, smeared dark like old blood, were the words. "Don't let him find you." Before I could process it, footsteps echoed behind me. Slow. Heavy. I spun, light catching the silhouette of a man at the other end of the hall. Tall. Thin. The same figure I'd seen in the streetlight before. "Where is she?" I shouted, my voice cracking with fury. The man tilted his head, lips curling into the faintest smile. His eyes glistened black, reflecting the beam of my flashlight. "You don't belong here," he said softly. I lunged forward, but before I could take more than a step, the floor beneath me groaned and gave way. The wood splintered, and I plunged through, crashing into darkness. I hit the ground hard. Pain shot up my leg, but adrenaline forced me to crawl to my knees. My flashlight had landed nearby, the beam pointing across a damp, concrete floor. A basement. The smell here was worse, rot, mold, something chemical. I staggered forward, gripping the light, and that's when I saw it. A door. Not wood, but metal. Bolted shut. Small air vents near the top. From behind it came the sound of sobbing. I pressed my face close, straining to see through the slits. And that's when it happened. A pale hand slid out slowly from underneath the door. Fingers trembling. Weak. Reaching for me. I grabbed the hand, squeezing tight. "Serena. I've got you." But then a voice whispered through the vent. Not Serena's voice. "Shoo, he'll hear us. When I tell you I touched that hand in the basement, I swear to you, it was cold, trembling, desperate. Whoever it was, they squeezed me so tight it hurt, as if I was the only lifeline left in their world." "Serena?" I whispered, my throat dry, my chest heavy. But the voice that came through the vent wasn't Serena's. It was weak, broken, barely more than a whisper. "Shoo, please, don't let him hear us." My blood turned to ice. I pressed my face against the metal door. "Who are you? Where's my daughter? Where's Serena?" No response. Just soft sobbing, muffled by the steel. I pulled at the bolts until my hands bled, but they wouldn't budge. Whoever locked this door had meant for it to stay shut. Then, above me, the floor creaked. Slow, deliberate footsteps. He was back. I killed the flashlight instantly, crouching in the pitch dark, every muscle tight. The footsteps crossed the ceiling, pausing directly above me. Dust rained down from the cracks. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. After what felt like an eternity, the sound faded, retreating deeper into the house. I waited 5 full minutes before turning the flashlight back on. The pale hand had disappeared under the door. Whoever was inside had retreated into silence. I couldn't waste more time. I needed another way in. At the far side of the basement, my light revealed a narrow staircase leading upward. The wood was rotted, the railing barely intact. I climbed slowly, every step groaning under my weight. The stairs led me to a small hallway I hadn't seen before. It didn't look like part of a normal house. The walls were lined with mismatched boards, the ceiling too low, the air heavy with damp earth. At the end was a door. I pushed it open, and froze. The room inside was normal. Too normal. A bed neatly made with white sheets, a lamp glowing faintly on the nightstand, a dresser tucked into the corner. For a moment, I thought maybe I'd stumbled into the wrong house. But then I saw the details. The sheets weren't white. They were gray, stiff, stained with something that had seeped in deep. The dresser drawers hung open, empty. And the lamp flickered as though it hadn't been plugged in for years. My gut screamed at me to leave. But then I heard it. Breathing. Soft. Steady. Coming from the bed. I crept closer, flashlight trembling in my grip. The bed looked empty, the sheets smooth. But the sound was louder now. I crouched, my knees popping, and slowly bent down to peer underneath. That's when I saw them. Eyes. Wide, unblinking, staring straight back at me from the darkness. I gasped, jerking back. My light flickered across the floor, and then a figure slid out from under the bed. It wasn't Serena. It was a girl, maybe 17, her face gaunt, her wrists bruised raw from ropes that still dangled. Her hair was matted, her clothes torn. She crawled out like a trapped animal, her eyes wild with terror. "Please," she rasped, grabbing my arm with surprising strength. "Don't make noise. He'll come back." I knelt beside her, my heart in my throat. "Who are you? Where's my daughter?" The girl shook her head violently, tears streaking her face. "No names. No names. He listens. He always listens." I tried to calm her, but she kept glancing toward the door, as if expecting him to burst in any second. "Was it you who messaged me?" I asked. She shook her head. "No. Not me. But, she's here. I saw her. He keeps us," her voice broke. My chest clenched so tight I thought I might collapse. Serena was here. Alive. But before I could ask more, footsteps thundered in the hallway outside. The girl's eyes went wide with panic. She scrambled back under the bed, pulling the sheets down to hide herself. I turned off my flashlight and dove behind the dresser, pressing myself into the shadows. The door creaked open. He entered. I could see only his outline in the dim light, tall, impossibly thin, his head tilting unnaturally as he surveyed the room. His footsteps were slow, deliberate, like he knew someone was there but wanted to savor the fear. He moved toward the bed. My heart pounded so hard I thought he'd hear it. The sheets shifted slightly as the girl trembled beneath them. His head snapped toward the movement. Silence. Then, in a voice that made my skin crawl, he whispered, "I told you not to come out." The girl whimpered. I couldn't stay hidden. I couldn't let him take her. I grabbed the nearest thing I could, a broken piece of wood from the dresser, and lunged. I swung with every ounce of strength in me, the wood cracking against his shoulder. He staggered but didn't fall. Instead, he turned slowly, and for the first time, I saw his face clearly. His eyes were wrong. Too black, too deep, swallowing the light. His skin was pale, stretched tight, like it had forgotten how to be human. He smiled. "You shouldn't be here, Elias." Hearing my name in his voice nearly dropped me to the floor. He advanced, but I swung again, screaming, and this time the wood splintered against his arm. He didn't flinch. Didn't bleed. He just kept walking, each step deliberate, measured. The girl screamed from under the bed. I turned toward her, desperate. "Run!" I shouted. But she didn't move. She just clutched the floor, sobbing. Behind me, his footsteps grew louder. Closer. I spun, ready to fight again, but the room was empty. He was gone. I collapsed to my knees, gasping, every muscle trembling. The girl crawled out from under the bed, shaking uncontrollably. "You don't understand," she whispered. He's not always there. He comes and goes. But he hears. He sees. He knows everything." I grabbed her shoulders. "Where is my daughter? Where is Serena?" She opened her mouth to answer, but then her eyes widened in horror. Behind me, the floor creaked. I turned slowly, every nerve in my body screaming. And there, in the doorway, stood Serena. Her eyes were wide. Her lips trembled. And she whispered words that shattered me. "Dad, you shouldn't have come. And if you've followed me this far, you'll know that every step I've taken has been to find my daughter, Serena." But nothing, could have prepared me for what I saw in that doorway. There she stood. Serena. My little girl. 14 days missing. 14 nights of nightmares, searching, begging. And yet, here she was, alive. But something was wrong. Her skin was pale, too pale, as if she hadn't seen sunlight in weeks. Her hair clung to her face in damp strands, her clothes torn and dirty. But it wasn't just her appearance. It was her eyes. They weren't the eyes I remembered. When Serena was little, her eyes sparkled every time she laughed, every time she begged me to read one more story before bed. But now, they were wide, hollow, trembling with fear, yet behind them, something else lingered. Something dark. "Dad," she whispered again, her voice breaking. "You shouldn't have come." I stumbled forward, arms outstretched. "Serena. My God, Serena, I thought I'd lost you." The girl from under the bed tugged on my sleeve violently. "No. Don't go near her," she hissed, her voice trembling. I shook her off. How could I not run to my daughter? But Serena raised her hand, stopping me in my tracks. "Please, stay back. You don't understand." My chest tightened. "Then help me understand. Tell me what happened. Tell me who he is." Her lips quivered. She glanced toward the corners of the room, as if afraid of being overheard. Then, with tears spilling down her face, she whispered. "He's still here." The air turned heavy, suffocating. The lamp flickered violently. Somewhere in the walls, a deep groan echoed, as if the house itself were alive. The girl under the bed began to sob. Serena's whole body trembled. And then I felt it, cold air brushing against my neck. I spun around. Empty, but when I turned back, Serena wasn't in the doorway anymore. She was inside the room. Standing only a few feet away. I hadn't seen her move. She was just there. "Dad," her voice cracked. "He won't let me leave." I grabbed her shoulders, pulling her close. She felt real. Warm. Alive. "We're leaving now. I don't care who he is, I don't care what he wants. We're walking out of this house together." But Serena shook her head violently, gripping my arms. "No. If you take me, they'll all die." I froze. "Who will?" Her gaze flicked toward the girl beside me, then toward the floor. "All of us. He doesn't just keep me. There are others. In the walls. In the basement. In the dark places you haven't seen yet." My stomach lurched. "Others? How many?" "Serena, listen to me," I begged. "We can go to the police. We can get you help. Whatever this is." "Dad," she snapped, her voice sharp, unnatural. For a moment, her eyes went black. Completely black. I stumbled back, heart pounding. Then, just as quickly, her eyes filled with tears again, human again. "Please," she whispered. "Don't make him angry." The house groaned louder, a low rumble vibrating through the floorboards. The air grew so cold I could see my breath. The girl under the bed screamed. "He's here." And then the lights went out. Darkness swallowed us. I fumbled with my flashlight, hands shaking, and when the beam finally cut through the black, my blood froze. The walls were moving. Dozens of pale hands, reaching out from cracks and seams, clawing at the air. Fingers stretching, grasping, desperate. Faces pressed against the wood, mouths open in silent screams. Serena clutched my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "Do you see now?" she cried. "Do you see what he keeps here?" My mind reeled. How many souls had been trapped? How long had this been happening? The girl shrieked again, pointing behind me. I turned. And there he was. The tall, thin man. Standing in the center of the room. Smiling. "You've come too far, Elias," he said softly. "You can leave. But she stays. Rage boiled inside me. I charged forward, swinging the broken piece of wood still clutched in my hand. It cracked against his chest, but he didn't flinch. Didn't move. Instead, he leaned close, his breath cold against my ear. You brought yourself here. You opened the door. Now you belong to the house, too. I stumbled back, gripping Serena's hand. Run! I screamed. We bolted toward the hall, the girl under the bed scrambling behind us. The walls clawed at us as we passed, fingernails raking my arms, pulling at my clothes. The house shook violently, dust and plaster raining down. But somehow, we burst through the front door, into the night air. I collapsed onto the wet grass, gasping, clutching Serena tight. The girl fell beside us, sobbing uncontrollably. For a moment, the world was still. The house loomed silent behind us, its windows black, its door wide open like a mouth waiting to